Kirsten, Joss, thank you for being on the show. I really appreciate it. You do missions in Kenya, and basically right now you're home trying to raise funds and everything and trying to get back overseas and whatnot, but I just kind of wanted to ask you about some of your time in Kenya and whatnot, and just like what your ministry is over there. So what do you do over there?
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
So I recently just got back from Kenya, about almost 3 months ago. I have been living there for 3 years, around 3 years, back and forth for like holidays, back and forth here to there. But the past couple of years, I've mainly been focusing on mentorship and discipleship with teenagers and young adults, and also doing things on the side with vulnerable children and orphans.
Okay, cool. So you've done other mission trips before in your life, right?
Yes.
So how many other mission trips have you been on?
I think, I'm like trying to remember, but I think I've been on total, like in the U.S. and outside the U.S., I think I've been on around 15 mission trips.
Okay, and when did you first start doing mission trips?
I first started doing mission trips when I was, I think, in middle school. So it was around 7th, 8th, I think it was 8th grade. 8th grade year is when I started doing it.
So has missions always just kind of been like your life calling, or did you kind of realize this later in life?
I realized it actually later in life.
Yeah.
It's a long story on how God has led me. But let's see. I wanted to be a veterinarian growing up.
Yeah.
And ever since I was probably 8 or 9.
Okay.
And obviously that didn't happen.
Yeah.
But anyways, I was in high school. Or no, I went on my first trip in middle school. Then in high school I went to, I've grown up at Southeast Christian Church. And in high school I went to Bible and Beach, which is the what's it called? It's like a camp basically for high schoolers. And
I think that is Bible and Beach.
Bible and Beach, yes.
Yeah.
So I went to Bible and Beach this is during my sophomore. I went every year I think, but during my sophomore year, so my second year of high school. And the last night there, I remember specifically at the end of the sermon that the pastor asked, like, if anybody wants to go, feels like they're called into ministry, please stand up. And I remember sitting in my seat, and as I sat there, I started shaking and crying. I didn't understand what was going on, and I just felt somebody like pull me up out of my seat, and I knew like that was God. And I stood up, and at that time I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know what it meant to go into ministry, what it meant to be a missionary or a pastor or anything. Anyway, so that like tugged in my heart for a while, and I started talking to my parents. But I also remember backtracking to when I was 9 years old, I remember I was in the kitchen one day, and I told my mom, I remember I was doing something, and I turned around to my mom, and I told her, one day I'm going to be in Africa. And I think that was the time of saying, like, God was saying, like, yes, one day, like, your daughter is going to be there. And but anyways, fast forward, I went to college at Asbury University.
Yeah.
And I was actually studying missions firsthand, and then halfway through college, I decided to switch to youth ministry. So I actually, once I graduated college back in, it was like December 2014, I have a degree in youth ministry in like a minor in missions.
Okay.
So anyways, after I graduated, it's a long story, but after I graduated, I'm trying to think of that. So I met one of my mentors today, called Dr. Florence Mwindi, who's the head of Life in Abundance.
Okay.
And she told me, she's like, Kirsten, God wants you to come to Africa for an internship with Life in Abundance this summer. Why don't you think about that? And I was like, okay. So I prayed about it and thought about it, and then I applied to do the internship, and I was gone, I think it was 10 weeks.
Yeah.
So I was 2 weeks in Kenya, and then the rest of the weeks in Ethiopia, and it was awesome. I learned more about missions and how to be a missionary.
Yeah.
And then I came back, and people started asking me, well, Kirsten, what are you going to do? And I was like, well, I'm going to start applying for jobs as like a youth pastor, see if I get anything. And all the jobs, I wasn't getting called back.
Yeah.
And so I just decided, okay, well, I'll just full-time nanny as I was doing when I got back and just help out with the youth at church.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. And then I went to the Passion Conference in January 2016.
Yeah.
And the second night there, God audibly spoke to me. Like, I had never been so desperate to hear God's voice and to know where God wanted me to be.
Yeah.
And God's voice, I audibly heard his voice. He told me, Kirsten, you're to go live in Kenya and you're to work with children and youth. And that's all he said. He didn't tell me time, day, year, when I would go. So I came home and told my parents, and my mentor and I just prayed over it and prayed about it. And
how did your parents receive that? Because, I mean, like, for me, like, I always hear that, you know, it's a beautiful thing when somebody wants to go do missions and stuff like that, but it's also, like, you know, as parents, like, it's hard to let their child go to the other side of the world, you know? So did they handle
question.
it well, I guess?
I think they did, yes. As parents, I try to put myself in their shoes a lot, but I think it would be hard to send your daughter or your son, like, overseas. I remember telling my parents at the dinner table, and at the table we were eating dinner, and I just started crying, and now I'm getting emotional, but my parents, my parents, they responded well. They just told me, you know what, like, if this is what God wants you to do, we want you to pray about it. How about you ask your mentor more about where God's calling you and see what the next steps are to Kenya. So I messaged my mentor about it, and she responded back to me within like the next day and told me, why don't you come to Kenya on your own? We can show you around for about 10 days to different ministries and see like what opens up. So I think the first time I ever, like, besides being with like a mission trip team, I flew to Kenya April 2016, and I think that's when I saw God move. Like, that's when I saw the doors open. And to really see how you're asking, like, how my parents responded, I think they responded really well. Like, really well. And very supportive. They've always been very supportive.
Okay, cool. Cool. So when you went over there for the 10 days, you obviously met a lot of people, but where was the point, I guess, where you realized that this vision was going to come true?
That's a good question. Okay. So I remember, I think it was the second day I was there. You know, April is actually the rainy season, one of the rainy seasons in Kenya, and
they don't have fall or winter.
No,
they? It's
so
like
they just
dry and then wet.
They just have dry, wet seasons. So actually, like this month right now, it's August is supposed to be like the rainy season too, but I heard they're not really getting much rain right now. So but it's usually 75 degrees, sunny, perfect weather every day. So
see, most people I talk to, like everybody who's never been to Africa, always pictures it as just being really hot and like desolate almost, but it's actually pretty abundant over there.
Yeah, in Kenya, I would say it's really good. I feel like if you go more towards like the coast and where the Indian Ocean is, it's humid. It's very humid there, and it could get really hot. But most days in Kenya, it's about 75 degrees. Their winter, what they call it, that the Kenyans call it, it's like 65 degrees, maybe 55 at night. So it's like spring weather. So it's like I'm in spring weather, summer weather, like all year round.
I could use a 65 degree winter.
Yeah.
Here. But what are some of the biggest needs and everything that you notice in Kenya and that you aim to try to take care of while you're there?
The needs. There's a lot of needs. The areas of where my heart is really tugged on is, one of them is like discipleship and mentorship with teenagers and young adults or youth. A lot of the girls I would say that I mentor there are going through a lot of mental health issues, and I've noticed in that culture that people there, they shun away from it and they don't want to talk about it.
What kind of brings on those mental health issues, do you know? Like, is it cultural or is it nature or nurture? Like, I mean, obviously here in America, we talk about mental health because of, unfortunate happenings that, go on. But I think, like, I don't even know where to begin, like, with another culture of knowing, like, what mental health issues get brought about. But I don't know. What do you think it could be stemming from?
I think different things. I think just some of the things I could say is a lot of them feel like peer pressure from their parents. Yeah. And saying, well, you need to be a doctor, or you need to go into law school, or you need to go be I was going to say teacher, but some of them don't think teaching is good, so a good job. But but they want them to have, like, the higher jobs, the higher status. Right. And there are some people who come to me and they say, Kirsten, well, my parents want me to go be a lawyer, to go be a doctor, or to go do something. But I feel called to, like, go be a singer. Or to go... one girl wanted to go do, like, be a makeup artist or something. Yeah. So it's very different, but I noticed in their cultures, like, they know if their parents are paying for their college, if they're, like, generously, like, paying for their college, that they want to respect their parents. Yeah. And so they asked me, like, is it that I don't respect them or I do respect them? I told them, respect your parents, but afterwards, like, it's your choice. Yeah. It's your choice on what you feel called to do and what you want to do. Yeah. With your life. But the other things of mental health, I think people ask me, well, do the teenagers and youth in Kenya deal with the same things that people do back here, like in the U.S.? And I think that's a huge point. I think that they do deal with the same exact things. Maybe minus, like, poverty levels could be different. And I go in and out of slum areas. I go just upper. People think I'm always in, like, middle class, upper class. I'm upper class, middle class teens. I work with teens who have grown up in the slums and poor areas. So I'm all over the place. I'm not always just in a certain area. Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah. I don't know.
That's cool. With doing missions in Kenya, and then of course the other missions that you've done before, were there any, like, mission trips that were kind of really heavy on your heart, or anything that you experienced out there that, like, had, like, a significant impact on you? Because whenever I talk to people who will do, like, a week-long or 2-week-long mission trip, they'll be like, oh, that was life-changing. And then, sometimes they move on, or sometimes they actually do, like, kind of change their life about it. But, like, you've been on enough to where I'm like, I'm just kind of really curious to, like, know what you've seen out there,
I think first when I've gone a lot of, like, overseas trips, which are 1 week or 2 weeks, and to be honest, I don't think that's enough time. Yeah. And now looking back, I feel like my first year of living in Kenya was just, like, I call it the touristy stage, because you're trying to get to know your areas. You're trying to get to know who can I trust, who can I not trust, where do I get from this point A to point B, where, like, how do I bargain for things, how do I live life there, how do people see me there, there's a lot of things that go through your head, that go through your mind, that go through your heart, and you're seeing a whole new culture. And I think for me, when I first got there, I was so excited, and then all of a sudden I'm like, this is real life. This is where I'm going to be staying. Yeah. And, like, homesickness and everything comes in, but to play every once in a while. But I think for me it was to get used, it takes time, I would say, to get used to the culture. Yeah. I'm still learning today. Like, I've been there 3 years. I'm still learning today more and more about their culture and how they do things there. But you also asked me about what, like life-changing thing. I would think, for me, it's like one of the things I think I've been learning a lot is, like, just to love people from like where they are, where they've grown up, what their story is, get to know them and get to know their story. Because I think a lot of people, you just walk into places and they look at you and they're like, oh, I don't want to see you. Or they run up to you, like the little kids, they'll want to come and grab your hand or want to feel your hair.
Why is that, actually? Is it like, are you like the first white person?
No,
I don't know.
Some areas, if you really go out in the village, which I haven't really, but I've been in like slum areas and stuff, like they want to feel like the texture of your hair. They know like it's different from theirs.
Right.
They want to feel your skin because it's different from theirs.
Okay.
So that's mainly some of it, but also like they think like the little kids could go on apparently telling their parents for like a week straight, like I'm a Zungu, a white person, like they touched me today.
Is that what like a white person's called a Mzungu?
Yeah, they call me a Mzungu. But
that's actually
the children,
kind of
most of the children I interact with, they know my Kenyan name, so they call me Zawadi, which means gift.
Is that your Kenyan name?
It's my
How'd you
Kenyan.
come up with that?
My friends gave it to me.
And they just said like you're a gift. So
yeah, my friends told me like you're a gift from God into this community.
Cow.
So
and then what's the name again?
Zawadi.
Zawadi.
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
So they speak English and Swahili.
Swahili, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Cool. Are you good in Swahili or?
I can hear really well.
Yeah.
On what people are saying, but speaking it, I'm more of. I'm like, hi, how are you? Good.
Yeah.
I'm more of I can say certain phrases and ask for certain things or
you find
get directions or
and
something, or bargain for something, but not much. I'm trying to learn it, but I can sing in Swahili. I have no problem. Like, if you give me a song to sing, I could probably sing it.
Okay, cool. What are some of your favorite things to do in Kenya while you're over there?
My favorite things to do in Kenya. People always ask me like, what touristy things do you do? And I'm like, it's like, okay.
Actually, let me ask you this.
What do I love to do?
I'll ask you this after you answer that question.
What do I love to do in Kenya? I love hanging out with friends.
Yeah.
Finding new coffee shops. They always have different coffee shops, places.
Is the coffee good?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah. Finding new coffee shops and new hangout spots.
Yeah.
I love. Okay, one of the touristy things I like to do is go to the giraffe center where you can like feed giraffes and then you can even like put the food in your mouth and the giraffe will come and like kiss you. So it'll take the food from you. But
is it like a zoo or is it like a reserve or?
It's right next to the game reserve in Nairobi.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I like hanging out with friends.
Nice.
I don't know.
Cool. Well, I was
a lot of things.
My next question though was like you said people are always asking like, you know, what are touristy things that you do over there? But that kind of like made me think of my time in Sicily on like some people would be like, "Oh, how was your vacation?" And I'm like, it wasn't a vacation. Like it was a mission trip. Are there any questions that people ask you or comments that kind of like I don't know, not really rub you the wrong way, but it's like, man, I wish you understood more about like what I was doing over there, or like, I don't know, just like, is there anything that you wish people knew about Kenya and the things that you do that they wouldn't know right off the bat?
I think for me, it's the culture that's really changed me.
Yeah.
Especially coming from the American culture where everybody's busy. We're on a pace. We go super fast. Like I have to go to here, to here, to here. If I run into a friend, I might not have time to like say hi.
Really?
Whereas the culture in Kenya, people will stop everything of their whole day if they even see you on the street walking by. They'll stop and they want to say hi and they want to talk to you and they want to know what you're up to, how you're doing. They actually want to have a conversation with you. And they're we call it like Kenyan timing or African timing because they tell you that they'll meet you at like say 9 a.m. There are several times I showed up for a meeting that was supposed to be at 9 a.m. and it more of led to like 10:30. So
just because like people will just stop what they're doing and like say hi to a friend.
Yeah, people just don't really keep track of time there like we do.
Okay.
So I think like a lot of the culture also, they love being in a community, being with friends, being with people. Like the Kenyan weddings I'll go to or the events I'll go to, you'll find like if you can't really have a closed invitation because you'll just find like thousands and thousands of people there.
Okay.
Like it's what they love. Like they love to have the community be together. They love to eat. They're huge
Yeah.
on eating and hanging out. But they love community.
Okay.
They really love it.
So, like with Kenyan churches and American churches, what are some of the biggest differences that you see there?
I would say that I've worked in both as interns. One like here at in the States and Kenya too. And there's differences. There's on the way you do, like I would say there's different structures. There's on how they do, I don't know, certain protocols, certain things. So in the Kenya church, it's 2 hours. There's no such thing as like 1 hour service.
Really?
So it's usually like the first hour is like praise and worship. You sing songs, offering, communion, like stuff like that. And then you have like a sambaza time where you like, do a couple of like games, getting to know people,
so socializing, asking questions,
kind of like socializing, And then they'll have like usually towards the end they'll have like the pastor or whoever come up and speak. That's more of like I would say like the young adults and teen setting, and then but the pastor who speaks will preach for an hour, and if they go over, they go over. So the service could be 2-3 hours, but mainly it's like 2 hours. Some churches can go all day. Like from morning till
Have you been in one of those?
5 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
But they usually have food by the end or something. Yes, I have. I've been invited to, I would say, a lot of different churches. I was asked to lead singing in Swahili songs at a funeral, and on the spot. That was a plan. Wow. I've done, I would say, a lot of different things, but. Yeah, I would say, like, it's all worth it. It's all about getting to know the culture and the country that you're in.
Cool. Yeah. What are, with all that, there seems like a lot of positives, but what are some of the greatest challenges that you faced while doing that?
I think challenges would be, one of them is homesickness.
Yeah.
Even though I call Kenya my home, but I also I was born and raised in the States, so I have 2 homes. Yeah. But like missing family and friends back in the U.S. I think that's luckily we have FaceTime with technology these days, but it's hard. You still don't get to like be there for certain events or certain things or certain holidays. I think usually when I get homesick is when I'm there during the holidays. Is when I'll usually miss like all the family time.
You know, I saw a video not that long ago. You came home for a little bit, and like it was you and your mom at an airport, and like you hugged her.
That's the first time I came home.
Oh man, that almost had me crying for a little bit because I saw that.
I remember I was so like, I had been gone. That was my first year in Kenya, and I had been gone 9 months. Straight. And I didn't think I was coming home, and I came home and surprised my friend for her wedding and surprised my sister for her graduation. Wow. And I was just home for a month and then went back to Kenya. But I remember going through that airport, like, not knowing what to think, and I just started crying because I was so happy just to be able to see my family and friends.
How long is the flight from Kenya to America?
Usually, it takes me about 20 hours. So it takes me... Gosh. But now they have this one plane, which I haven't been on yet, that flies direct from like New York to Kenya, which is like I heard is like 16-hour flight.
Oh my gosh.
With like nonstop.
Yeah.
But these are like I usually fly from here to Europe or to London.
Yeah.
And then from there to Kenya, and it's usually like 2 split up 8-hour flights, and then like a flight from here to like Chicago or Dallas or something.
Okay, so cool.
It's not too bad.
Yeah. Do you have a long-term plan as far as like your mission with Kenya or like missions in general? Do you want to do this like literally like your whole life, or is there going to be any point where like you come back to America and you're like, you know, let me see what else is going on?
Right now I would say I feel called to be there full time. I feel called to live there. I want to be there. One of my friends asked me earlier today, they're like, so if you come back, like, how long will you be there for? I'm like, I hope forever.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a joke, but yeah, but at the same time, like, I do want to be there, and I feel called to be there, to do ministry work there.
Okay, cool. So one of the things that, like, I got to do back in Sicily was work with West African refugees. Just a lot of the things that are happening in West Africa, like a lot of women and children are basically trying to go to Europe and start a new life, just because Libya's a failed state and everything. And honestly, I know Africa's huge. I know, like, you could fit all of America, Europe, and China in it, basically. But I was wondering if anything that's going on in West Africa affects anything in East Africa, or if you have any thoughts on, like, basically, like, what's going on over there. Do you, like, see the impact of that in Kenya at all, or is that anything that people talk about?
I haven't really, like, focused on that, on, like, the Western, Eastern, Southern, like, different parts of Africa and how it affects each other. But I've heard, like, because of, like, in East Africa, different people from other countries, from the African countries, are coming in to different areas to be refugees. And now, like, right now, I can tell that there's, like, some friction of, like, not wanting all of these people to, like, come in. So I think they're getting tighter. I would say, I know for a fact Kenya's getting tighter on immigration, whether it's, like, on foreigners a lot. But I think it's also will be, like, turns out to be a good thing. But I'm not sure, like, I don't have all of the information about West and East and like the whole part of Africa and how it, like, affects it.
Okay, cool. Well, another thing that I wanted to ask you as well, so you're fundraising right now. You're trying to bring in some money to go back there. For all the audience that is listening and everything who maybe would want to support you. What are the goals that you're trying to reach?
The goals that I'm trying to reach, first off, I've started my own nonprofit 501c3 organization called Living Hope Inc. And
you got it on your shirt there.
Yes, I got it on my shirt, if it shows. With the African tree.
What kind is that?
It's an acacia tree is what it's called.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's my logo, my symbol.
Nice.
Anyway, so my mission is to I don't have a specific that's on my website. I don't have it specifically memorized right now, but
no worries.
I feel called to work specifically with teenagers and young adults.
Okay.
Discipleship and mentorship with them. In East Africa. Okay. So not only right now I am starting in Kenya, and I am in Kenya. I've been to other countries around East Africa. So eventually, like, one day I want to reach out to those other countries, if that's what God wants. I also feel called to vulnerable children and orphans too. So right now I'm back in the U.S. for a good while. I don't have financial support to be going back. Okay. Even though I want to. My goals, on my budget, I got down to, let's say, like, I figured out my budget for the year. Right. And it's around $18,000 to $20,000 just for, like, myself to live there fully, to do, like, have, live somewhere. Food, transportation, everything like that. Okay. For, like, more of, like, basic needs and, like, as a missionary, like, living as a missionary. Now I also have a heart and want to do, like, I want to do projects. Right. Rather than just, like, a lot of the things I've been doing is, like, meeting up with teenagers, going into schools, and, like, all of this is all, like, volunteer missionary work. But I also want to hopefully eventually start up an orphanage, and also kind of like a safe place for teenagers who are going through, like, a rough time, or even may not even have a home. Right. I've been talking to a friend of mine back in Kenya who has found 29 orphans in an area in Nairobi. in one of the slum areas.
Yeah.
So I would love to start I'm trying to think of the word. I would love to start like a scholarship fund.
Okay.
For these kids, because a lot of these kids of why you see them on the streets begging for food, begging for water, begging for money, is not only because they're told by adults or whoever to do it. It's because usually they are homeless. They don't have a home or a shelter or even food. But they need to get an education. Yeah. And that's huge on my heart, is for them to be able to have an education so they can have a future. Yeah. And so I would love to be able to fund as many orphans as I can in school and giving them school. Yeah. Being able them to have food and shelter. So I don't have a budget range of like that right now, but I'll be working on certain projects.
Okay, cool. Well, so they can go to, what's your website or your...
my website is www.livinghopeinc.org.
Okay. Cool.
And then they can also receive, it's 100% tax deductible, and I can also receive...
Because it's a 501c3?
501c3, yes.
Okay.
And I can also receive checks, too.
Nice.
Yes.
Cool. So with that first project and starting an orphanage down the road, is there any, like, big project or anything that kind of, like, piques your interest that you are, like, wanting to try to accomplish in the future? Or you just kind of got your eyes set on an orphanage in a safe place right now?
I do have my eyes set on that, but I'm also huge on, I already said this, like mentorship and discipleship with teenagers and young adults. I really want to meet with a pastor that I know. Yeah. Which I don't think this pastor knows, is Pastor Simon Bevy, who he does a lot of discipleship training, but more with like men, which is he's now like leading into a group of like women. Yeah. But I would really like to start a group for young adults. Yeah. And do like a discipleship training program. So I'm also thinking about like possibly writing up or working on a curriculum at some point, so like and starting like a school
almost.
Kind of, yeah. Or it's like, or we could do like a 6-week study or a couple months study with certain teenagers. I don't know. Cool. I don't know what it'll be, but I also have like, this is way in the future. I want to have like a conference for East Africa teenagers to come to. I don't know when that will ever happen, but I have a lot of just different goals.
Yeah, no worries.
And what I feel called to do.
Cool. All right, well, usually near the end of the show, I kind of do some rapid-fire questions just so the audience can get to know you a little bit more. Okay. They're silly questions, but, you know, it's whatever. Okay. What are your favorite movies or your top 3 favorite movies?
I don't really have favorite movies, but I would say I like Soul Surfer. Yeah. I like The Impossible.
Okay.
And...
What's The Impossible about?
The Impossible is about, it's actually pretty sad.
Really?
It's based on a true story, and it's about a family who goes on vacation to, I think, Thailand or Philippines or something. And there was a huge hurricane that happened when they were there.
Is that with Tom Holland?
I think so.
Okay. Yeah. I have not seen that, but like.
But anyways, they get destroyed and the family gets like split up and this and that, and at the end, people are trying to help other people, and at the end, the family gets back together and they get back to the U.S.
Okay, cool.
But I don't know. I guess it's an inspiring story.
No worries. No worries. Yeah. Cool. So, The Impossible, Soul Surfer, and then you have a third movie?
Third. I've loved, like, growing up, I love Disney movies, but I've also loved, like, the Avengers movies.
Sweet.
So, like, Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame.
Did you see Endgame?
Yes. Yeah, I saw that in Kenya, in, like, the IMAX theater.
Did they do it in English or Swahili or?
English.
Okay, cool, cool. I was in Sicily and I watched Transformers and it was all in Italian and I was just like, oh. Oh, no. Okay. That's cool. By the way, I don't hold it against you at all if like you haven't seen a lot of movies, because like your sister has never seen any movies. Like, when I talked to her about it in high school, I'm like, did you see this? And she's like, I don't know what that is. And I'm like, We literally can't talk about anything. But what are your favorite books or top 3 favorite books? And you can totally take your time because, like,
I'm trying to remember. I've read a lot of books.
Yeah.
I would say, I'm trying to think of the names of the book. I just read this summer. I've been reading different books.
Yeah.
One of the books I read, I don't know if it's my favorite book, but one of the books I recently read was called Single, Dating, Engaged, Married, and I
Whoa.
suggest that to all like the young people.
Yeah.
To read that.
Okay.
It for me, it really touched on like it's written by Ben Stewart, who's a pastor for Passion City Church.
Okay.
And anyways, and he wrote, and I think he just did a series on it at his church, but I don't know, for me it hit me because I'm at the age where I'm like, okay, I'm thinking about having a family one day, hopefully getting engaged and married. I don't know when, but God's timing. And so it really talks about like, even if you stay single, why God has called you to singleness. Mm-hmm. It talks about like dating and relationships with guys, girls, like family, like everything. So I think like to me like that really hit like a lot to me. I've also, I don't know, I like reading books by Bob Goff. I just recently read his. That
man's a genius.
Yes, he's awesome. I wish he was my grandpa or something. But I think he's so cool. But yeah, I've read his books, Love Does, and what was his new one? Right, I can't think of the.
I don't know his new one, but I haven't even finished Love Does yet.
I can't think of the title of that book, but it's awesome.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. What is your favorite scripture? Or like, what is some scripture that you like to live by?
I don't have it like.
No worries.
I have it off the top of my head. I'm like, there's a lot.
Typically, when I ask like girl missionaries, not to give a stereotype at all, but they literally almost can never answer this question because there's like, I don't want to choose one. There's so much, but I'm like,
so many. I'm
no
trying
worries.
to think of mine.
I can kind of let you think on it and go to the next question if you want.
Think of it. I would say like, I think growing up, like, but a lot of people say this verse is John 3:16.
Yeah.
When it talks about like, for God so loved the world, He gives only Son.
Yeah.
So that basically is saying like, you need to go into the world and make disciples.
Right.
But I don't know. There's a lot of verses. I like a lot of Psalms. I like a lot of, and Proverbs and.
My favorite psalm is
Romans. I love Romans.
My favorite psalm is Psalms 121, and it's I look to the hills, where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord. But it's like the whole chapter and everything, right? Like, hopefully, I'd like to get it tattooed somewhere on me one day. Hopefully, we'll see. But I'd have to move out of my mom's house first before I do that. So, but here's the next question. And I get a lot of like mixed opinions about this, but do you believe in spiritual warfare? And if so, what do you like? What's your position on it?
Wow.
I know that's kind of heavy, but like.
Yes, I do believe in spiritual warfare. It happens to like everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone, and I think for me, definitely as like a pastor or a missionary.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard. And I think like people. I've lived in Kenya 3 years, and people will ask me, "Oh, is there witchcraft over there? Is there this and that?" And I'm like, I don't know. I guess like I don't really think about that. I just think about saving people's souls. But what I was gonna say is I've had so many ups and downs the past 3 years. I even had surgery in 2017 in Kenya, and for my appendix, and I almost went toxic. And
did you have to get it taken out?
Died, and I had to get it taken out.
Oh, jeez.
It was this huge thing. But like I always usually get, like, I can get sick very easily, and
Really?
there's certain things where, like, Satan knows, oh, I can get Kirsten here, or I
Yeah.
can do this to keep her away, and, like, people, I remember coming back to the U.S. after I had surgery, and people were like, are you going back? Are you crazy? Like, you just had that.
Yeah.
You just had that happen to you, and I told them, it's like God. I
Yeah.
wanted to go back. I didn't want to be back.
Right.
And, you know, have this whole huge thing happen to me. I was in the hospital for a month, like in and out because I was sick. And
I think I actually saw that.
yeah,
Like on your Instagram. You were on a struggle bus for a bit.
it was hard. I've gone through really rough times.
Yeah.
Friends who I've trusted in Kenya who have stolen from me a lot of things.
Dang.
I've gone through just a lot of just regular life things.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would say that, yeah, like life happens like it happens here.
Yeah.
Like it happens here. People go through things.
Does the spiritual warfare kind of differ in Kenya than it is like in America, would you say? Or you kind of, is it just kind of like it's all just kind of one thing?
To me, I think it's all one thing.
Yeah. Okay, cool. What is some of the best advice you've ever received, or like anything that anybody's ever told you that's been really encouraging?
Gosh, I'm thinking. I'm like, gosh, I had notes or something. I think recently, I know right now I've been going through like a lot of culture shock, and I want to, my flight back was
Culture shock back in America?
Here, coming back here
Oh, man.
to different things from like being in Kenya, but I feel like, it's like, I don't know, I'm losing my train of thought. It's hard. It's hard sometimes to go back from cultures and
Were you
I
just
think,
like kind of walking around like, you people are gross?
No.
Like,
no, it's different places, and I think one of the most, like, I came back, I thought I was going back, I thought I was supposed to leave actually today to go back to Kenya, and I don't have the funding or finances to go back right now, and so I've told my friends that, and actually I could tell you, like, right now, some of my best friends are in Kenya right now. They're not here in the U. I have friends here in the U.S., don't get me wrong, but some of my closest best friends I've met actually are in Kenya right now. And I think one of the best advice recently that I was given, because I just got off, like, I just started a good, like, a full-time nanny job I've been doing this summer and right now through this school year to try to make some money to go back to Kenya, and and I love children, so it's perfect for me. But anyways, but one of the best things that one of my friends was telling me was, Kirsten, you were like, they were telling me, they're like, Kirsten, you know, you were looking for something that was like small to you because you're like, oh, I just want something small. I want to I want to go back to where I was. Yeah. And they're like, really what you need is you need something that's like big, but you don't really know that because you don't feel like God will give that to you. Yeah. And they said, you know, sometimes this is what you want. Yeah. But that's not what you're going to get. Right. What you are going to get is what you need at that time. And I think that really spoke to me. Yeah. Because like that's been coming up a lot recently to me because God knows what you need, and sometimes he doesn't give it to you straight away. And he wants you to work at it. He wants you to have faith. He wants you to be able to trust him. And so for me to be able to do that is I have to be open to opportunities and what he has for me. So right now I'm just beginning this journey back in the U.S. for a while, and it could be a year, it could be 2 years. I don't know, but I know I'm like, okay, God, like whatever you have planned for this, I'm here, and I'm here in what you want me to do.
You know, one of the things I notice about like people who are willing to step into missions full time and everything, they're some of, well, for one, the kindest, but they're also like I guess the word is meek, meek, the most meek people. And it's for that very reason. It's like they're willing to step into servanthood, and like for you naturally, like because of that, you might think that it's like, okay, I'm going to step into this low position, so I'm only going to take like, or I'm only going to receive like, you know, what little I can get because like that's all I'm kind of looking forward to. But like you having that heart to go serve and literally change your entire life, even on a geographical scale, is the willingness to let God take the reins of your life. But then in that, that's like showing, hey, even though I don't really know it in myself, but like I'm ready to receive like the gigantic vision that you want me to be a part of. And I think that's always my encouragement for people who go overseas, because I can tell how humble they are, but I'm like, don't be afraid to step into something that's going to be a lot bigger than what you thought it was going to be. It's going to be, who knows what it's going to be. Like, you're an instrument, and God knows how to, you know, play you the best, right? So just be ready, you know. But that is cool, though. I'm glad your friends like encourage you for that. Yes. One of the pieces of advice I got, and I've never said this on the podcast yet, but it just, that kind of made me think of it, but it really stood out to me. I was taking care of old people, and there was this old guy. He was a doctor that I was looking after, and he was 94. And I'm just sitting there in the living room with him while we're watching KET. And I looked over at him. I was like, hey, Dr. Popham, do you have any advice for somebody my age, as somebody that's like 94? And he sat there for 2 minutes in silence, and I literally thought he like forgot that I asked him a question. And he just looks at me and he goes, don't take anything that anybody says too seriously, because nobody really knows what they're talking about. We're all just trying the best that we can, and just believe in yourself. And I was just like, that's okay, cool. But that is really neat, though. My next question to you is, if you want the audience to know anything about yourself and your life in Kenya, what is the one thing you would want them to know the most? That's definitely really broad and vague, I know, like, but what? I kind of leave it up to like whatever you want.
If I could pick one word, I would say adventurous.
Yeah.
I feel like anywhere you go, you have to be willing to like go on the adventure.
Cool.
If not, like, you're not gonna make it.
Okay.
I don't know if that makes sense, but
no worries.
But yeah, I would say I'm very go with the flow person.
Okay.
And so if my friends, like, one of my friends actually asked me, this was like last year sometime, one of my friends asked me, she's like, hey Kirsten, are you doing anything this week? I'm like, well, yeah, besides like work, yeah. Well, I was like, why? What do you have planned? And she's like, so one of my friends is getting married in Rwanda, and I was wondering if you wanted to tag along on a 30-plus hour bus ride.
Yeah.
So I went all the way through Kenya, all the way through Uganda, all the way to the west side of Rwanda.
Holy cow.
And it was like on bus.
Yeah.
And the roads are like bumpy. So it's like potholes. And like
do you get motion sickness at all?
Luckily I didn't.
Okay,
good. Anyway, so I'm very spontaneous. I'm very adventurous. Funny short story was that I actually ended up, this girl has known her for I don't know how many, like my friends has known this girl is getting married for I don't know how many years, for a long time.
Okay.
And this girl ends up putting me as a bridesmaid in her wedding like 10 minutes before the wedding starts. Actually, it was like 5, more like it.
Was it like to even
I
out
was bridesmaid. In the Rwanda culture, they do 2 weddings, so it's like a traditional wedding, and then they go do like, which is like they finish paying dowry and stuff like that, and then they're doing the church wedding.
Is it on the same
like
day or is it?
Yeah,
it
was started at like I think 8 a.m., 8 or 9 a.m., and then it went to like I think past midnight. But yeah, it was like an all-day event.
Holy cow!
But anyways, yes, I'm a very spontaneous, like I just do things. Well, people say I do crazy things, but like not too crazy things.
No worries.
So, yeah, I love going to go see new places, new cultures. I love meeting new people from different places. I'm very, like, if my friends told me, hey, let's go to the coast, to the ocean, I love going to the beach. So they're like, it's like an 8-hour drive.
What are the beaches like there? Are they
They're not there. It depends on where you go. At first, when I first went to their ocean, I liked the South Coast better than, like, there's North Coast and South Coast. I liked South Coast better than North Coast, but now I've found, like, certain areas are good in North Coast and certain areas are very good in South Coast.
So I think sandy or rocky or
some of them are like, it depends on where you go. Some of them can be trashed.
Yeah.
Some of them can be rocky. Okay. Some of them can be just like pure white sand, like you'll find in like Florida or something.
Oh wow.
So it just depends. It really depends on where you go. So I love adventurous things. I think my last day when I was in Kenya, my friend, the same friend who invited me to go to Rwanda, she asked me to go to, it was a holiday that day. There were so many different holidays. So there was a holiday that day. I don't remember what it was for. But anyways, so she invited me to go on this trip with some other people to the Arbor Dares, which is like one of their forests. Yeah. And that's what, like, that forest is huge. I'm like, you need to plant trees there because that's some of our water source comes, like, flows from the river all the way down to, like, goes in Nairobi, all of this stuff. So even they were saying, like, in that, like, range that we were, the forest range that we were in, they're like, watch out, you could be seeing elephants. Of course you see, like, monkeys everywhere, but yeah, there's just, I feel like there's always, like, something new to explore, something to do. So I'm very just out there. Nice. Yeah. Cool. I guess is what you'd say.
All right. Last question, and it's definitely the weirdest question, but I ask it every time.
Okay.
Do you believe in aliens? And if so, why? And if not, why?
I have no idea.
Some people that come on the podcast believe in aliens, and some people don't. I'm just curious to know.
I've watched, like, movies with like aliens and different things.
Has it never, like, you never just, like, looked up, like, into the Kenyan sky, like, with all the stars and been like, you know, maybe they're aliens? I don't know. Do you ever think that? Or
not real. I don't really think that. So cool. I'm not saying I don't say there aren't any. I'm not saying there is. Yeah. I actually have no idea.
Okay, cool.
If they're aliens or not.
Well, that's all I needed to know.
Okay.
All right. Well, Kirsten, thank you so much for being on the podcast. And I think anybody that has a chance to listen to this is really, they're going to be inspired by your story. And, you know, hopefully they'll try to help you in some way. But one more time, I want to give you the chance to plug, you know, your nonprofit and tell them the website and everything and how people can reach you best if they want to support you. So what is the name of your organization and your website again?
My organization's called Living Hope Inc. Okay. I think I have a Facebook page. I think it's Living Hope Inc. Africa. Okay. Which I think is also linked to, like, my Facebook page, but I also have an Instagram page called Living Hope Inc. Cool. And also my personal Instagram page. But I have a website that you can go to is livinghopeinc.org. Okay. Which will have more information about, like, just what I've been up to, what I've been doing. And I think it also has the address that you can send checks to in the mail. Cool. And you'll get, if you give donations, you can get 100% tax deductible on them. Cool. Yeah.
So usually, like, you'll take check or something like that, or
check or cash or yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, Kirsten, thank you so much for being on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want, I will be posting all of her information and how you can support her when I release the episode. So that's how we'll do it. And Kirsten, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Guys, thank you for listening. We will see you next week. This was Life on a Mission.